We now have a Democrat Party that is literally rooting for America's failure. Listen to the top Democrat in the U.S. House of Representatives, Hakeem Jeffries.
There's no indication that Iran had reconstituted its nuclear program. There's no indication that Iran was prepared to strike the United States preemptively or to strike any of our interests in the region. And there certainly is no justification for a regime change war. The American people want us to focus on making their life better, making their life more affordable, not getting involved in another endless war in the Middle East that is going to end in failure, that is going to end in failure, that is going to end in failure.
He is literally a propagandist for the lunatic Islamist regime in Iran, or maybe it's the former Islamist regime. He is predicting failure for the United States military. He's actually rooting for military failure with our troops in the midst of combat operations.
That is going to end in failure.
Now, the rule used to be that partisan politics stopped at the water's edge, which means that the parties present a united front in foreign policy, even if they might privately disagree with what's being done. But today's Democrat Party is actively rooting for the failure of our military in the middle of combat operations because they despise Donald Trump more than they like America. In fact, I would argue that they don't like America.
To have a democracy, a beacon of hope for the world to now be turned into one of the worst countries.
I would say our country should be more fearful of white men across our country because they are actually causing most of the deaths within this country.
And so I think it is beyond time. It's beyond time to ask Muslims to condemn terrorists. CARE was founded after 9/11 because they recognized that some people did something.
This is no longer the party of JFK, who is patriotic, religious, pro-life. I consider myself a JFK Democrat, but today's Democrat Party has literally become the anti-America party. How did that happen? And here, Hakeem Jeffries says that there's no evidence that Iran reconstituted its nuclear weapons development program.
There's no indication that Iran had reconstituted its nuclear program.
And this is the standard Democrat line. Well, let's hear what Steve Witkoff has to say. He's President Trump's envoy to the Middle East.
80% materials, Sean, can be brought to 90%. That's weapons grade, in roughly 1 week, maybe 10 days at the outside. The 20% can be brought to weapons grade inside of 3 to 4 weeks. In that first meeting, both the Iranian negotiators said to us directly, with no shame, that they controlled 460 kilograms of 60%, and they're aware that that could make 11 nuclear bombs, and that was the beginning of their negotiating stance. So they were proud of it. They were proud that they had evaded all sorts of oversight protocols to get to a place where they could deliver 11 nuclear bombs.
And the 60% that he's talking about here is that uranium needs to be enriched to 60% purity for it to be turned into nuclear weapons. And Iran had enough enriched uranium to make 11 nuclear bombs. Witkoff says Iran's negotiators were boasting about this.
There's no indication that Iran was prepared to strike the United States preemptively or to strike any of our interests in the region.
Of course, he means imminently here, not preemptively. And we struck Iran preemptively, knowing that an attack was imminent. And to just show how malevolent Iran is, Iran has now attacked 10 neighboring Muslim countries. Iran's parliament has been chanting death to America since 1979 when these maniacs took over.
So it was November 4th, 1979, when the Islamic Republic of Iran stripped 52 Americans, their freedom, their dignity, and their pride.
52 hostages were held for 444 days in Iran from the end of 1979 until January 1981.
They brought Iranian women to the front door, then used them as shields as they broke through the American embassy. So I will never forget the human rights of what they did to the Iranian women then, and obviously what still goes on to this day.
And here's Iran's supreme leader, well, former supreme leader, the one who Trump just killed.
گله میکنن که چرا ملت ایران میگن مرگ بر آمریکا. اولا بنده این رو برای حضرات بزرگان آمریکایی روشن کنم. مرگ بر آمریکا یعنی مرگ بر ترامپ و جان بولتون و پومپئو.
Iran attacks commercial ships in the Strait of Hormuz and the Persian Gulf. And this has been going on for nearly half a century, since the fall of the Shah in 1979, since these lunatics took over. Now, Trump did try to send him a message last June when he dropped Moab bombs on Iran's 3 nuclear weapons development facilities. But Iran, for some reason, didn't get the message. Instead, Iran immediately started reconstituting its nuclear weapons development program, immediately started enriching uranium again. And they obviously weren't going to stop. And Iran is actually far more dangerous to the United States than the Soviet Union was at its peak during the Cold War, because the Iranian regime is basically suicidal. You, of course, saw the 9/11 hijackers fly jetliners, passenger jets, hijacked passenger jets into the World Trade Center towers. These people are more than happy to delete themselves for their warped ideology to strike the great Satan being us. By contrast, the Soviet Union did not want to annihilate themselves. So our doctrine of mutual assured destruction worked to keep peace with the Soviets. And it's worked to keep peace with China. The doctrine of mutual assured destruction works with anyone that doesn't want to kill themselves. But it doesn't work with these radical Islamists who are eager to launch kamikaze attacks against us. And that was a big problem when we were fighting Japan also in World War II, where there are kamikaze pilots flying their planes into our ships. It was actually a lot tougher to fight the Japanese for this very reason than the Germans. So obviously we can't let these lunatics get nuclear weapons. So Donald Trump is making sure that does not happen. Now, Iran also tried to kill Donald Trump at least twice. Yeah, Tucker Carlson doesn't believe that. Here he is arguing about that with Senator Ted Cruz.
You told me that the government of Iran is presently trying to assassinate Donald Trump, and then you
that
said
is undisputed. There's literally nobody who disputes that fact.
Then why don't you support military action right now against Iran?
We are engaged in military action right now.
Why don't you support offensive military action?
We're bombing the crap out of them. Israel is, and we're supporting them. Israel is.
Okay. So why shouldn't the U.S. military defend its own president? I don't understand that.
Look, and it goes back to...
Because you don't really believe it's true, that's why.
Everyone... Hey, nobody disputes it, Tucker. Did you land on the moon? What other conspiracies do you not believe? Was 9/11 an inside job? I mean, like what?
So where... I've asked you the names of these people. I've asked you how you know the names of the
Iranian hitmen. I know it because the U.S. military and the intelligence agencies have testified before Congress repeatedly.
And what did they say?
That Iran is trying to murder Donald Trump and has hired hitmen. Do I know the name of the hitmen? No, I'm sorry. And I don't think we do either, because we would apprehend them if we knew their names. Out of 535 members of Congress, I am not aware of one who disputes that Iran is trying to murder Donald J. Trump. That's not even the looniest Democrat doesn't dispute that. So I don't. You're saying if you believed what is, I think, a fact that they are trying to.
You think it's a fact?
Yes.
What is the fact exactly?
That they've hired hitmen.
In the United States?
Yes.
Americans?
Yeah, he's not in Iran, so they haven't hired hitmen.
No, but are they the hitmen American?
I don't know.
Tucker Carlson being about the only person in America who doesn't believe that Iran tried to kill Donald Trump. I don't know what's happened to Tucker Carlson. I used to like Tucker Carlson, but he's gone off the deep end. In fact, here's a video that was produced by the Iran government, by Iran's regime, describing how it planned to kill Donald Trump. And of course, this Iran regime is the world's #1 sponsor of terrorism. Iran funds and weaponizes Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis in Yemen, and terrorist groups throughout the Middle East. Iran sponsored the Hamas attack on Israel. This is the Hamas terrorist attack that killed Israeli citizens on October 7th, 2023, killed 1,200 Israelis. They took 251 people hostage, not just Israelis, but also Americans. This group is sponsored by Iran. Hamas killed most of the hostages, raped and tortured the women. Iran sponsored this, paid for this. Plus, Iran is among the most oppressive regimes in the world. Maybe only North Korea is worse. Just in the last few weeks before Trump attacked Iran, Iran's regime slaughtered, machine-gunned down 35,000 pro-freedom protesters. Just gunned them down. Unarmed civilians, women, mostly women, and children. In Iran, a woman who goes out in public without a head covering, any woman who exposes her hair, is publicly flogged and imprisoned, tortured, raped, often executed, can be stoned to death. In Iran, even children are executed. 84 children in Iran are on death row right now. Confessions are obtained by the regime by torture and are aired on national television in order to terrorize the people. People who fail to fast during Ramadan are imprisoned and tortured, often killed. Women who are accused of adultery can be publicly stoned to death, Old Testament style. No proof is needed, just an accusation is enough if you're a woman. Gay people are thrown off of rooftops to their death, or thrown off cliffs, or hung from cranes for all to see. In Iran, if a woman is sentenced to death, she's raped by the guards before she's actually executed so that she cannot enter heaven. And in fact, any woman who is raped in Iran is executed for being raped. Let's listen to what this Iranian woman has to say.
Imagine being from a country where you have no human rights, the government is evil, and by no human rights, I mean you don't have the freedom to choose your religion. If you choose a different religion than Islam, you get executed. You don't have the freedom to date anyone. If you're outside and you get caught holding hands with the opposite sex, you get arrested. You don't have the freedom to wear what you want to wear. The government just kills you and tortures you. Imagine being from a country like that and then getting on social media and seeing people support the government of that country that's doing all these things to these people. Please, if you're one of those people that's not educated, educate yourself. Please understand that this is a very evil regime.
And this Democrat voter hopes our troops never make it home.
And literally, if you have any part to play in the American military industrial complex, literally, you. I hope you never make it home. I'm so serious.
And you can tell immediately that she's a Democrat voter because of the nose ring. The Democrat Party today has become the party of the mentally ill.
Where do you think would be better for women, Iran or America?
I don't think America's quite good for women when we look at how we handled Epstein files.
You have the freedom to follow whatever religion you want, including none at all. And you're gonna walk around and try to tell me that this is a worse place to be as a woman than Iran.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What do you think is happening in Iran to their women? Do you think that that place is a good place for women?
I think women have their right to choose about where they want to live and about what they want to follow.
In Iran?
In Iran, yeah. I think that people have misconceptions about religion, especially with Muslims and Islamic regions.
I was not expecting you to be so pro the Ayatollah and pro dictator.
Well, yeah, we have a dictator in our own country.
I have a challenge for you. We will buy you a ticket, a one-way ticket to Iran.
We really?
Would you go? Would you take that?
Yeah.
She's the product of America's schools. This is what young people are learning today in the schools and colleges.
Are you part of the LGBTQ community at all?
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to go with her? Do you want to bring your boyfriend?
Yeah, sure, why not?
Okay, very cool.
Here's what the Ayatollah said about women, and this is before Presidente El Donaldo Trumpo removed him from the earth.
مثل گاو و گوسفنده که خدا اینها را خلق کرده برای اینکه وسیله غذای مردم باشه و یک قسم حیوان خلق کرده و اون زنها و خانمها هستن اینا عین گاو و گوسفند هستن، حیوان هستن، ولکن و خدا خلقشون کرده برای استفاده مردها، فقط واسه که مردا وحشت نکنن این زنها را به شکل خود انسان خلق کرده، اگر نه اینها عین همون گاو و گوسفند و عین همون اسب و شتر و الاغ هستن.
The Ayatollah here saying women are animals created by Allah to be used by men. Women are no different from cows, sheep, horses, or mules. Allah created women with a human appearance so that they would not frighten men. End quote. That was the Ayatollah, and that's their ideology. But Democrats defend the Ayatollah over President Trump and over America. They despise President Trump more than they like America, and more than they oppose this absurdly oppressive regime. That's how sick and twisted today's Democrat Party has become. Add to this Biden's wide open border where he just allowed 15 million illegal migrants to just pour into our country, actually paid them to come in. This was his Democrat voter importation program. That's why Democrats are for all these migrants pouring across our border so that they can vote in our elections. The only way a policy like that makes sense, this open border policy that the Democrats want, is because they want to destroy America. There's absolutely no other explanation. And Donald Trump is trying to reverse all of that. Now, there are a few buffoons out there who call themselves MAGA, who call themselves America Firsters, who say that President Trump is violating his promise not to get America into endless wars by decapitating Iran's murderous regime. No, he's not. He's completely consistent. Donald Trump is not a pacifist. He's not an isolationist. During his first term, President Trump launched 2 attacks on Syria, one in 2017, one in 2018. He hit Syrian chemical weapons facilities and a Syrian airfield with about 160 cruise missiles.
American warships launched cruise missiles before dawn local time. The Pentagon hopes the attack made it much harder for Syria's president to use chemical weapons on his own people.
U.S. warships in the Mediterranean Sea launched 59 missiles. They pounded an air base in western Syria.
And we now know he will not hesitate to use military force to send a dramatic message to Syria's President Bashar Assad.
From a U.S. warship, one of 105 missiles fired through the night into Syria.
Trump eliminated ISIS, killed the ISIS leader and founder Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, wiped out the top ISIS leadership, killed the top al-Qaeda leadership, dropped 20,000-pound Moab bombs on ISIS's tunnel network in Afghanistan. He killed Iran's top terrorist general Qasem Soleimani in 2020 because Soleimani had orchestrated attacks that had killed more than 1,000 Americans. Here's what that looked like. Wouldn't want to be him. Trump killed the top leaders of the Houthi terrorist organization in Yemen who are attacking commercial ships in the Red Sea. The Houthis are funded and armed by Iran. Here's that video. Anybody who thought that Donald Trump was some kind of pacifist or isolationist when they voted for him in 2024 just wasn't following the news. And of course, most recently, before this Iran attack, he arrested the communist dictator of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro, who was flooding America with illegal drugs. Maduro was really head of the cartels in Venezuela. So Trump took Maduro off the board. Maduro and his wife are now sitting in a jail in Manhattan. That's the Trump doctrine. Eliminate the bad guys and get out. Hit them hard. This is not endless wars. Trump's wars tend to last a matter of days or weeks. And by the way, Donald Trump has been talking exactly this way about Iran for nearly a half a century. Here was Trump in October of 1980 during the Iran hostage crisis when this regime, this very same regime, was holding 52 American hostages.
When you get the respect of the other countries, then the other countries tend to do a little bit as you do, and you can create the right attitudes. The Iranian situation is a case in point. That they hold our hostages is just absolutely and totally ridiculous. That this country sits back and allows a country such as Iran to hold our hostages, to my way of thinking, is a horror. countries.
Obviously, you're advocating that we should have gone in there with troops, etc., and brought our boys out.
I absolutely feel that, yes. I don't think there's any question, and there's no question in my mind. I think right now would be an oil-rich nation, and I believe that we should have done it, and I'm very disappointed that we didn't do it, and I don't think anybody would have held us in abeyance. I don't think anybody would have been angry with us, and we had every right to do it at the time.
And here was Donald Trump on Iran in 2011.
So Iran can be taken. I would never take the military card off the table. And it's possible that it'll have to be used because Iran cannot have nuclear weapons.
Donald Trump has been 100% consistent about Iran since 1980. No inconsistency whatsoever. And somebody on X put together a 16-minute compilation of President Trump saying Iran cannot be permitted to have nuclear weapons. Here's a little bit of that.
They cannot have a nuclear weapon. That was the only thing. The one thing I said, you cannot have. I just didn't want Iran to have a nuclear weapon. I said, we're going to make a great deal. Everybody's going to be happy. You're going to be rich as hell again. Everything's going to be great. But you cannot have a nuclear weapon.
You can't let Iran have nuclear weapons.
Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. Very simple. The main thing is Iran can't have a nuclear weapon. That was my main thing. The deal was a simple deal. It cannot have that nuclear capability.
So President Trump is not for getting America into endless wars in the Middle East, as Democrats claims, or some on the so-called MAGA right. Donald Trump is in the process of ending a 47-year war that Iran has waged against America. And this war is only going to get bigger, more serious, more dangerous if this regime was allowed to continue, if this regime ever acquired nuclear weapons, which it was in the process of acquiring. According to Trump's envoy to the Middle East, Steve Witkoff, who is doing these negotiations.
In that first meeting, both the Iranian negotiators said to us directly, with no shame, that they controlled 460 kilograms of 60%, and they're aware that that could make 11 nuclear bombs, and that was the beginning of their negotiating stance. So they were proud of it. They were proud that they had evaded all sorts of oversight protocols to get to a place where they could deliver 11 nuclear bombs.
So President Trump is ending the regime now, as he said should have happened in 1980 when Jimmy Carter was president. It was Jimmy Carter who handed Iran to these lunatics in 1979. It was Jimmy Carter who undermined the Shah. The Shah was an ally of the United States. Iran was a fantastic country to live in under the Shah. Here's what Iran looked like in the 1970s under the Shah, before these lunatics took over in 1979. Iran was a vibrant, cosmopolitan country under the Shah, a happening place with nightclubs and restaurants. It was a tourist destination. I would love to see Iran return to this. But President Jimmy Carter screwed it up by trashing the Shah for supposed human rights abuses. The Shah was just rounding up Islamic extremists and radicals so that they wouldn't blow up the nightclubs. So how is Trump's military operation going?
Starting last night and to be completed in a few days, in under a week, the two most powerful air forces in the world will have complete control of Iranian skies, uncontested airspace. I hope all the folks watching understand what uncontested airspace and complete control means. It means we will fly all day, all night, day and night, finding, fixing, and finishing the missiles and defense industrial base of the Iranian military, finding and fixing their leaders and their military leaders, flying over Tehran, flying over Iran, flying over their capital, flying over the IRGC, Iranian leaders looking up and seeing only U.S. and Israeli air power every minute of every day until we decide it's over. And Iran will be able to do nothing about it. B-2s, B-52s, B-1s, Predator drones, fighters, controlling the skies, picking targets. And now, with complete control of the skies, we will be using 500-pound, 1,000-pound, and 2,000-pound GPS and laser-guided precision gravity bombs, of which we have a nearly unlimited stockpile. We used more exquisite standoff munitions at the start, but no longer need to. Our stockpiles of those, as well as Patriots, remains extremely strong. The enemy can no longer shoot the volume of missiles they once did, not even close. And the chairman will lay out some of those percentages. Iran's senior leaders are dead. The so-called governing council that might have selected a successor, dead, missing, or cowering in bunkers, too terrified to even occupy the same room. Senior generals, mid-level officers, enlisted ranks, they can't talk or communicate, let alone mount a coordinated and sustained offensive. That's not great for morale. The Iranian Air Force is no more, built for 1996, destroyed in 2026. The Iranian Navy rests at the bottom of the Persian Gulf. Also, yesterday, the leader of the unit who attempted to assassinate President Trump has been hunted down and killed. Iran tried to kill President Trump, and President Trump got the last laugh. Sure, Iran will still be able to shoot some missiles and still be able to launch one-way attack drones at civilian targets, and their proxies will attempt to attack our embassies, bases, and soft targets. They are terrorists, after all, and they need to target civilians because they can't fight toe-to-toe. But we will find them, and we will kill them. This is what the fake news misses. We've taken control of Iran's airspace and waterways without boots on the ground. We control their fate. But when a few drones get through or tragic things happen, it's front page news. I get it. The press only wants to make the president look bad, but try for once to report the reality. The terms of this war will be set by us at every step. As I said Monday, the mission is laser focused. Obliterate Iran's missiles and drones and facilities that produce them, annihilate its navy and critical security infrastructure, and sever their pathway to nuclear weapons.
Their army is gone. They're just about, look, their navy is gone. Their communications are gone. Their leaders are gone. 2 sets of their leaders are gone. They're down to their 3rd set. Their air force is wiped out entirely. Think of it. They have 32 ships. All 32 are at the bottom of the ocean. Other than that, they're doing very well, Coach. Very well.
Well, we now see that Iran's missile launches have plummeted to almost nothing. Also, its drone launches have pretty much plummeted to almost nothing. And every time Iran launches a missile or a drone, we have the ability to take out the launcher because our satellites can see the launches, can see exactly where these drones and missiles are launched from. We then have the ability to take out that site immediately. We have some great footage of our submarine sinking one of Iran's biggest warships with a single torpedo in the Indian Ocean. Iran thought its ships would be safe in the Indian Ocean, but no, they're not safe. America has sunk Iran's entire navy. Iran's entire navy is at the bottom of the ocean. Now, one of the great side benefits of ending this regime is that President Trump and the Republican Party will gain about 1 million Iranian American voters. Iranian American voters can be seen doing the Trump dance to the YMCA song all across America. Now, the fake news, the propaganda news is telling you that this war is unpopular. But here's a CBS poll which shows that 76% of Americans support Trump's military action in Iran if it lasts days or weeks. Now, support for the military action drops as the war goes on, as this military action goes on. Support drops to 46% if the war lasts months, according to the CBS poll, and dropped to 13% if military action lasts for years, George W. Bush style. So we don't want President Trump to be George W. Bush 2.0, but there's no chance that that will happen. What Americans want is success. So 76% of Americans support Trump's military action in Iran if it lasts weeks, which is exactly what I think is going to happen. And here are more Iranian Americans doing the Trump dance while waving American, Iranian, and Israeli flags. three flags that were never supposed to be in the same video together. President Trump is literally bringing Iranians and Jews together. How is it possible to be a more unifying president than that? And if this military action is successful, and I'm sure it will be, Team Trump is going to have endless video footage of Democrats rooting for America's failure.
This is Trump's war. This is a war of choice. He has no strategy. He has no endgame.
I'm heading to vote no on Donald Trump's war in Iran. The American people do not support Donald Trump dragging the United States into yet another endless war in the Middle East, and neither do I. There's no plan from Trump, no legitimate justification. The Senate must step up and stop Trump's reckless and illegal war in Iran.
Donald Trump has dragged us into a war the American people do not want. He has put American troops in harm's way. I unequivocally oppose this war of choice, and everyone should. And the bottom line, when it comes down to it, is that if we want to stop Donald Trump with this random decision that he has arrived at, then Congress must act, and Congress must act immediately. The American people do not want our sons and daughters to go into this unauthorized war of choice, and I unequivocally oppose it.
Is unilaterally dragging this nation into an illegal and unjustified war with Iran. Congress must reassert its constitutional authority. I urge my colleagues to vote yes to stop U.S. involvement in another illegal forever war.
Democrats are attacking Trump reflexively no matter what he does. Donald Trump could cure cancer, and Democrats would criticize that. In fact, here was Chuck Schumer attacking Trump for not being tough enough on Iran.
When it comes to negotiating with the terrorist government of Iran, Trump's all over the lot. One day he sounds tough, the next day he's backing off. And now, all of a sudden, we find out that Witkoff and Rubio are negotiating a secret side deal with Iran. What kind of bull is this? They're going to sound tough in public and then have a side deal that lets Iran get away with everything? That's outrageous. We need to make that side deal public. Any side deal should be before Congress and, most importantly, the American people. If Taco Trump is already folding, the American public should know about it. No side deals.
This was, of course, before the military action. You just can't make this stuff up. Whatever Trump is doing, they're against it. The Trump doctrine is strike hard, hit hard, get rid of the bad guys, and get out. And if the war does drag on for many months, well, this is going to be a political disaster for the GOP in the 2026 midterm elections. And Donald Trump's not going to let that happen because, unlike George W. Bush, Donald Trump is smart, and he knows how to win. Let's listen some more to this moron, Hakeem Jeffries, who claims that President Trump violated the law and the Constitution with his Iran military action. And again, this is the top Democrat in the House.
Important for us to take the step that is in front of us right now, which is to work to make sure that the War Powers Resolution, which is bipartisan in nature, passes on the House floor today. Every member of Congress needs to go on record. This is a matter of the utmost significance that the framers understood would perhaps be the most important decision that members of Congress would make. And in fact, they decided that in our system, they don't want a king-like figure being able to unilaterally decide to send American men and women to war. That's why in Article 1 of the Constitution, this power was explicitly given to the Congress. And it's now the Congress's responsibility to go on record, because Donald Trump has unconstitutionally and illegally chosen to launch a war. He's describing it as a war. So-called Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, is describing it as a war. Other members of the administration are describing it as a war. And there's a requirement under the Constitution that it's members of Congress who make the decision as to whether to get us entangled in this kind of armed conflict. And that's what the resolution this week will be all about.
And this is the standard Democrat line. So here's a quickie tutorial on the president's war powers under the Constitution. Thomas Jefferson, the writer of America's Declaration of Independence, our founding document, did not seek congressional authorization to go after the Barbary Coast pirates. These were the Muslims and terrorists of that day in North Africa. These pirates were disrupting shipping and trade routes. So Jefferson went after them all the way to Africa. He imposed a naval blockade around Tripoli, which was their headquarters. That's where they were congregated. And he destroyed the Barbary Coast pirates. And that ended that problem. And this military action is described in the Marine Corps song, "From the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli." The Constitution gives the president the authority to wage and conduct war. He's the commander-in-chief, according to our Constitution, which is the supreme law of the land. Now, Congress can also declare war, which gives added weight, or can give added weight to the military action, but that's not necessary. It's optional. And Congress has not declared war since World War II. Since then, we've had the Korean War, the Vietnam War, and many other wars, probably a dozen or so wars. Barack Obama dropped 26,000 bombs on 7 countries: Afghanistan, Pakistan, Somalia, Yemen, Libya, Iraq, and Syria. And here's what Nancy Pelosi said when asked if Obama has the authority to attack Libya without congressional authorization.
So, Madam Speaker, or Madam Leader, you're saying that the president did not need authorization initially and still does not need any authorization from Congress on Libya?
Yes.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you all very much.
Obama was attacking Libya for like 7 years. Finally overthrew Gaddafi, who had actually become sort of a U.S. ally at that point. He wasn't launching any terrorist attacks on us, but Obama wanted to get rid of him for some reason. And Hakeem Jeffries delivered this nonsensical word salad when asked to explain why it was okay for Obama to do this in Libya and all these other countries, but it's not okay for Trump to take military action.
Back in 2011, Nancy Pelosi said that then President Obama didn't need congressional approval to bomb Libya. Now House Democrats say President Trump needs that approval to bomb Iran. What's the difference?
Well, obviously, Libya and the circumstances connected to that were very different than the circumstance that we face in Iran right now. I mean, I don't even understand the genesis or basis of that question. Not suggesting that you're not asking it in good faith.
Libya went on for 7 months.
As I've indicated, first of all, I was not in Congress at the time. So we're dealing with what we're dealing with right now.
Now, the 1973 War Powers Act grants the president the power to wage war for 60 days without authorization from Congress. So that's congressional law. And actually, he can go on for another 30 days after that. Now, I happen to believe that the War Powers Act is unconstitutional, an unconstitutional restriction on the president's authority under the Constitution to wage and conduct war. Unfortunately, no president has challenged this in the Supreme Court. I think a president should challenge it in the Supreme Court. But also, no president has admitted or conceded that the War Powers Act of 1973 is constitutional. But even this 1973 War Powers Act gives the president 90 days to pretty much do whatever he wants in terms of military action. And we want this because we want the president to be able to act quickly to threats. We don't want an endless debate in Congress about whether we should strike an emerging threat. For military action to be effective, it often has to be by surprise, and it has to be quick. You can't have 535 members of Congress as the commander-in-chief. That's just absurd. And of course, America's founders knew that, which is why they wrote the Constitution the way they did. They gave the president the authority to wage and conduct war. And Congress, if it wants to, can declare war, but it's not necessary. It's optional. Now, many are asking how President Trump avoids sending American ground forces, ground troops into Iran. And that's a good question because air power alone is usually not enough to win a war, especially a pretty big war like this one. Iran is a big country, 90 million people. So ground power is going to be needed. Well, President Trump's team is planned for that also. The U.S. has been arming thousands of Kurdish fighters inside Iran since the last Iran war of June of 2025, sometimes called the 12-Day War. And they have already started ground operations with big U.S. weapons.
Just in, it's big. A U.S. official telling Fox thousands of Iraqi Kurds have launched a ground offensive in Iran.
The Kurds are fierce fighters. President Trump's arming of the Kurds played a key role in President Trump's ability to wipe out ISIS in 2019. That was during President Trump's first term. The Kurds are an ethnic group. It's a mix of religions. Most of the Kurds are Sunni Muslims, but many are Christians, and some are even Jewish, as well as other religions. The Kurds are known for religious tolerance, and many are secular. And the Kurds are very pro-United States, pro-Western. Here's what some of the Kurdish fighters look like. Now, sadly, this woman died fighting ISIS, I believe in 2019. And there are about 10 million Kurds in Iran. And reliable polling shows that about 80%, probably more than that, of Iran's population opposes this murderous regime. In other words, there's no need for American troops on the ground beyond maybe some special operations and CIA people, trainers and whatnot. But no major U.S. ground force. We have a population that is willing and able to fight. Plus, we now have reports that Israel's military, the IDF, special forces, are in Iran and training the Kurds and training other groups. Israel has some of the best special operators in the world and, of course, has the best intelligence for that part of the world. So Israel plus the Kurds plus anybody who wants to join in the fight are perfectly capable of wiping out whatever is left of Iran's evil regime. And to give you an idea of just how effective Israel's intelligence and espionage operations are, Israel took out the top leadership of the Iran-backed Hezbollah terrorist organization by hacking into their pagers and then blowing them up, killing or wounding about 2,500 fighters, Hezbollah fighters and leaders. So here's some footage of that. After seeing this, you'd have to wonder why Iran would ever want to keep on attacking Israel and chanting death to America and threatening nuclear annihilation of America. Doesn't make a lot of sense. We also know that Israel hacked into nearly all traffic lights in Tehran and installed cameras, so had total surveillance of Tehran. Iran also hacked into the mobile phones of Iran's leaders and could track their every move. This report was posted by Ari Fleischer, who was the White House spokesman under President George W. Bush. This is a report from the perspective of Iran's regime. This is from the regime. I'll just read from it. Quote, the infiltration has allegedly moved into the medical clinics and private lives of the leadership. Intelligence circles are buzzing with claims of medical espionage, where Mossad operatives, that's Israeli intelligence operatives, posing as specialized doctors or dentists, utilized routine procedures to plant miniature tracking devices into Iran's leadership. Whether through nano-trackers slipped into dental work or beacons implanted during endoscopies, the elite of the Iranian military may have been transformed into unwitting human beacons. This level of deep tissue infiltration provides a logical explanation for the terrifying accuracy of recent strikes that have reportedly neutralized, killed, over 400 high-ranking officials. So that's the level of Israel's espionage operation. It's a mystery to me why some on the right despise Israel. I'm talking about Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, and that ilk. I think the Israelis are awesome. Without Israel, we could not be doing what we're doing in Iran, or it would be a lot tougher. And Israel is actually doing most of the work. Israel's existence is what allows the United States to project power into the Middle East. Israel did 90% of the work in the 12-day war last June of 2025. All we really did was drop heavy 30,000-pound Moab bombs on 3 of Iran's underground nuclear weapons development facilities. That's pretty much all we did. Israel did the rest of the job on Iran last year. I like Israel because they're very smart, very tough people. They're winners. Why wouldn't we want Israel on our side? And of course, they want us on their side. That's what an alliance is. And think about this. Following World War II and Hitler's Holocaust, Hitler killing 6 million Jews, about 500,000 Jewish people carved out their own country, where it is now, in 1947 and 1948. This country is supposed to be a safe haven for Jews. Because after what happened in Nazi Germany, well, they didn't want that to happen again. They wanted a safe haven for Jews. And what happened was the British Empire basically gave them the territory there that they had control of. Now, the territory was supposed to be split up between two groups, the Palestinians and the Jewish people. But the Palestinians and the Arabs didn't want Israel there at all. And so 5 Arab countries, including Egypt, Syria, and other surrounding countries, Lebanon and so on, invaded Israel in 1948. And so that was the Arab-Israeli War. And these Jewish people, these 500,000 Jewish people, won that war, took about 18 months, and they had no support from the United States or Europe because we had a weapons embargo on for that region of the world. And we were trying to be sort of neutral between the Jews and the Arabs in this fight. So the Jews there had to raise money privately for their weapons, and they still managed to beat these 5 Arab countries. And so in 1967, these same Arab countries, the surrounding Arab world, wanted a rematch with Israel and so invaded Israel again. And so Israel was able to win that war in 6 days, which is why they call it the 6-Day War. So these are the kind of people I want on my side. Very smart, very tough people. Winners. Now, most of the Arab world has actually accommodated itself to Israel's existence. Iran has now attacked all the Arab countries that surround Iran, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, and so on. And so now these Arab countries are in a coalition with us and Israel against Iran. Once again, President Trump is the great unifier. He is uniting the Arab world with Israel. You just can't beat that. Now, the United States, and some people object to this, the United States does send about $3.8 billion a year to Israel. And personally, I'm against all foreign aid, so I'd have no problem with cutting off the $3.8 billion to Israel. But just as a matter of perspective, consider that it costs us about $13 billion to build just one aircraft carrier. So that's $3.8 billion to Israel each year, compared to $13 billion that it costs to build just one aircraft carrier. So to me, it seems like a pretty good bargain. Israel is like a giant U.S. military base in the Middle East, but it's a military base that thinks for itself, that has its own intelligence capabilities, that is self-actuating, self-guiding, has its own brain, and is pretty much 99.9% self-funding. So I think that's pretty good. Israel is certainly a much better ally than the United Kingdom right now, or Spain or France or Germany, pretty much than any Western European country. I'll take Israel over those countries any day. We also get a lot in return from Israel. We get a lot of technology from them. For one thing, Israel is battle testing the Iron Dome technology, the missile defense system. Israel's having to shoot down incoming missiles all day long. So Israel has a tremendous anti-missile system that we can use. And it's battle tested. And it's not just battle tested, it's being used every day, all day long. Hardly any of Iran's missiles actually get through to hit Israel, even though it's fired thousands of missiles and drones. So yeah, I want that technology for the United States. So I'm 100% pro-Israel, though not on religious grounds. I'm for Israel on America First principles. It's in America's interest to be on Israel's side. And of course, it's in Israel's interest to be on America's side. Now, many Christians on the conservative side believe that modern Israel is God's chosen people in the Bible. I'm an agnostic on all that, though I am obviously a Christian, but religious reasons have nothing to do with my support for Israel. I like Israel because it's in America's interest to be on Israel's side, and it's in Israel's interest to be on America's side. These are very smart, very tough people. I want them on my side. And Israel is an outpost of civilization in the Middle East, of Western civilization, and allows the United States to project power in the Middle East in a very cost-effective way, and in a way that we could not do without Israel. So my support for Israel is pragmatic, practical, and strategic. So that's what's happening. President Donald J. Trump, with a big assist from Israel, is in the process of ending the Iran regime's 47-year war on the United States. Iran has been at war on the United States for 47 years, promising nuclear annihilation, promising to wipe out our cities if they get nuclear bombs. President Donald J. Trump is ending that threat. So this small anti-Israel wing on the right is just moronic in my opinion. Now another big benefit of eliminating Iran's murderous regime is that we're going to get control of the oil. And Donald Trump has been talking a lot about that since 1980.
Obviously, you're advocating that we should have gone in there with troops, etc., and brought our boys out.
I absolutely feel that, yes. I don't think there's any question, and there's no question in my mind. I think right now would be an oil-rich nation, and I believe that we should have done it, and I'm very disappointed that we didn't do it.
About half of China's oil comes from the Middle East and flows through the Strait of Hormuz. China is getting another 10% of its oil from Venezuela. But Donald L. Trumpo took Venezuela off the board for China with his capture and arrest of Maduro. China was running the Panama Canal, and Trump told Panama to kick China out of the Panama Canal. And so Panama did. So now Presidente Donaldo L. Trumpo has a chokehold over China's oil. And of course, the difference between Donald Trump's approach to Iran and the Democrat approach to Iran could not be more stark. Barack Obama gave the Iran regime $1.8 billion in American taxpayer money, pallets of cash. You probably remember that.
Continued outrage and controversy over that $400 million cash transfer to Iran by the Obama administration on the same day 4 American prisoners were released by Iran. The White House denies that the money was a ransom payment. Footage aired on Iranian television, however, purports to show the money arriving in Tehran, and that is raising renewed questions about whether this was a quid pro quo.
And he begged Iran not to attack us, begged Iran not to continue developing nuclear weapons. Then Joe Biden gave Iran another $7 billion in the form of unfreezing Iran's assets that had mostly been frozen by President Trump during his first term. And here's what Kash Patel said after Biden did this, gave Iran $7 billion. This is before Kash Patel became FBI director.
Joe Biden literally unfroze $7 billion that we had seized from the Iranian government and gave it back to him, to the mullahs in Iran.
And what did Iran do with this combined $9 billion that Obama and Biden gave them? Well, they just continued to develop their nuclear weapons and to fund terrorist groups like Hezbollah, Hamas, and so on, the Houthis and so on, all over the Middle East and across the world. Continue to attack commercial ships, continue to attack Israel and so on, and Americans, killing Americans, killed more than 1,000 Americans. Tried to kill President Trump twice, at least twice, that we know of. In fact, here's a chart that shows how Iran started building up its stockpile massively of nuclear weapons material the moment that Joe Biden came into office as president. So Donald Trump has a different approach. His approach, to eliminate this evil regime. That's how you stop this regime's development of nuclear weapons. The same way that he eliminated Maduro in Venezuela. The Democrat approach is always appeasement. Presidente Donaldo L. Trumpo's approach is to hit them with massive military power. His approach is victory. And think of all the benefits that are going to accrue to America by eliminating this evil regime. This will certainly triple and quadruple President Trump's leverage in trade negotiations. What President Trump is doing to the mullahs in Iran and did to Maduro will send a healthy message to our trading partners. Do not make the same mistake in thinking that President Trump is bluffing. You might remember a while back, I guess early last year, when Trump was starting to impose his tariffs and getting into lots of squabbles with the Canadians and so on, the Democrats were using the acronym TACO, T-A-C-O, TACO, to describe President Trump, which stands for Trump always chickens out.
If Taco Trump is already folding, the American public should know about it. No side deals.
President, Wall Street analysts have coined a new term called the taco trade. They're saying Trump always chickens out on your tariff threats, and that's why markets are higher this week. What's your response to that?
I kick out?
Chicken out.
Oh, isn't that nice? Chicken out. I've never heard that. You mean because I reduced China from 145% that I set down to 100 and then down to another number? And I said you have to open up your whole country. And because I gave the European Union a 50% tax tariff, and they called up and they said, please, let's meet right now. Please, let's meet right now. And after I did what I did, they said, we'll meet anytime you want. And we have an end date of July 9th. You call that chickening out? Because we have $14 trillion now invested, but don't ever say what you said. That's a nasty question.
Well, Democrats aren't using that acronym anymore. Haven't been using it for quite a while. I think President Trump's going to get a lot of cooperation from just about everyone after regime change in Iran. Vladimir Putin is probably going to start thinking more clearly. Maybe he's going to stop his war in Ukraine. He might decide to take the deal that's offered. Vladimir Putin has no idea what weapons we actually have. Look how easily Trump just went in and arrested Maduro. The people guarding Maduro said that they just couldn't believe the weapons we had. In fact, Trump confirmed that we have a mysterious weapon called a discombobulator that was used in the raid to capture Maduro. And this is apparently a directed energy plus sound weapon that penetrated and shut down all of Venezuela's defenses, including the Chinese and Russian-made rockets, communications, and other devices. Maduro's soldiers said that they felt like their heads were exploding from the inside. Their noses and eyes started bleeding, and they started vomiting blood. Their weapons and all their equipment suddenly became useless. They tried to press buttons, the weapons didn't work, the computers and devices didn't work. So it just took a few of our guys to go in and arrest Maduro. We can probably do the same with Putin, and Putin might be thinking that. I mean, right after the negotiation with Iran's people, when it became apparent that they weren't going to abandon their nuclear weapons program, we knew exactly where the Ayatollah was and the entire Iranian leadership. Then the United States and the Israelis just blew them up. Then in a second meeting, when 88 members of Iran's assembly gathered, we blew them up. So Putin might decide not to press his luck with Trump. Putin only invaded Ukraine after he saw how weak and incompetent the Biden team was in Afghanistan with that disastrous withdrawal of U.S. forces. But this can work in reverse. Putin now sees and understands how serious Trump is. He understands now that Presidente Donaldo El Trumpo is an entirely different hombre from Biden, Obama. So Putin might rethink. It's an entirely new ballgame with Trump, including for that idiot who's running Canada. And I assume Trump will soon end the communist regime in Cuba. Wouldn't it be great to see Cuba become a tourist destination again? Cuba used to be an awesome place with nightclubs and casinos. Wouldn't it be great to see that again? President Donald Trump is undoubtedly, without a doubt, the greatest president of my lifetime. I'm 68 years old now. I never thought we'd see a better president than Ronald Reagan, who I used to write speeches for. I wrote speeches for his 1984 campaign. But I think President Trump is better. Meanwhile, Democrat leaders continue to root for America's failure and the failure of our military, the failure of our troops. Democrats are just disgracing themselves. They're such losers. Hey, if you want a free digital copy of my best-selling book, Poisoned Ivy, on the origin of the woke mind virus, just hit the link in the notes section below. This also comes with a free subscription to my weekly newsletter, my weekly report, kind of my take on the news. And in that, you're going to see a lot of uncensored opinions and information that often isn't allowed on the big tech platform. So you're going to want to get that, plus my best-selling book. And it's all free. Well, that's it for now. Talk to you again soon.